The biggest obstacle I think yogis have is they expect the world to eventually become ideal. It's not ever going to become ideal because we need this world and its light and its dark. We need our family members who die of cancer. We need our wars. We need the people that we don't like. We need the situation where we're not perfect to teach us where perfection actually comes from, where longevity comes from, where the source of happiness comes from, right? Ramana Maharshi, actually by Yogananda, was asked one time, so Yogananda asked Ramana Maharshi, why does God permit suffering in the world? Yogananda is asking Ramana Maharshi this. And Ramana Maharshi simply says, it's the way. And Yogananda persists and says, yeah, but if God is so powerful and he could just do away with suffering with a wave of his hand, and Ramana Maharshi persists. He says, it's the way. And finally, Yogananda persists, and finally, Ramana Maharshi just sits there. Because obviously you can't answer that question, right? But I've wondered about that and thought about it quite a bit. And again, it comes back to what we talked about yesterday when I brought up that idea of original sin, right? Again, I'm not talking about in the Catholic way that really irritates a lot of people. I'm talking about just the idea of it, that we exist in this world the way it is right now because there is a seed desire within us that can only be fulfilled here. And part of the process of yoga is to burn up those seeds of karma so we don't have to come back here yet again, right? The Buddhists who say you keep coming back until everyone is enlightened, you're going to keep coming back forever, right? And we don't want to go to an extreme to where we're trying to escape. I don't mean to encourage escapism, but you need to do your duty. You need to clean up your mess, and then you can go outside and play. Right? That's the way we need to look at it. So it's not stay in your room with this mess until all rooms in the world are cleaned up, then all children can go out and play. No, it's clean up your room and you'll be able to exist in this angelic state or a state of clarity, which is freer than the material. So you go from the gross here and you transcend that. Well, now you're in the astral and causal realms. You still have stuff to work out. It's not going to be quite as painful, but it will still be painful. And that's why in the Yoga Sutras it says, to the yogi, all is but pain. And the reason it says that, again, is not to push you into a state of despair and say, what's the point? It's saying that anytime you identify with anything in creation, there is a potential for pain because creation is always changing. And that's why there is this emphasis to experience directly soul, spirit, pure awareness without defining yourself through prakriti, ever-changing nature. Now, if this is too much for you and it seems a little ridiculous, I get it. Don't worry about it right now then. Just keep doing your pranayama, keep studying the Bhagavad Gita, keep coming to retreats like this. And in time, what happens is that tamas, that heaviness, that ignorance that makes you think that, all this stuff is so important, it starts to shake itself off. And then you start to catch glimpses, and you read Ramana Maharshi or Paramahansa Yogananda, in his later years when he was more of an absolutist, and you start to see what they're talking about. But in order to do this, you have to have an initial sense that it is true. I mean, you all are here to study spirituality, to grow spiritually speaking, which means even if you don't agree with a lot of stuff that you read in some of these books or anything that I'm saying, it means that there is a part of you that knows that it is true. And you have to work at the level that you're at. And that might mean that you're spending your days perfecting your pranayama practice. It might mean that you're not even doing pranayama, that you're spending your days perfecting your asana practice, your ability to be comfortable within your body and so on. Or it might mean that you're simply spending your days perfecting your capacity to practice ahimsa or harmlessness. And that's a beautiful one. As I mentioned, you have to celebrate your successes. And so yesterday I talked about ahimsa. Yesterday, I did not eat any animals. So at the end of the day, I thought to myself, great, I did it. And that gave me a little boost. One day, I succeeded in not doing that. There was a time when I had to practice truthfulness, and I had to kind of keep track. Today I only told 20 lies, right? Hey, it's better than the 40 I told last year, right? 40 a day. And so you keep track of that, and you're not doing it again to like beat yourself up or have that type A perfectionist personality. Oh, I need to do it right. It's more of just, you know what? Today, can I tell 19 lies? Today, can I tell 10? Until eventually you get to the point to where you're not telling any lies. And then every day you celebrate the fact that this was a day of truthfulness for you. And that brings more light into your awareness, that lifts you up. And then maybe you tell a lie one day and you say, well, okay, tomorrow I'm not going to do that again. So when you look at the yamas and niyamas, maybe one of the most important transformational things you can do as a part of your bhakti, your devotion, because you see, that is how you practice devotion to God, right? By following the yamas and the niyamas. You keep track of that. And as you keep track of it, eventually you realize, wow, I did not steal anything today. Non-stealing is one of the yamas and niyamas. And by non-stealing, I don't mean, going to the store and swiping a watch. I mean taking something from you that's not yours, right? Or contentment is one of the most important ones of them all. How many of you can say that yesterday you were content all day long? Anyone? Well, good. Yes, the Swami should say that. So good job. Okay, well, so you weren't content all day yesterday. No big deal. But you need to bring your awareness to that fact. And then in this moment, let's just start with right now. In this moment, how many of you right now have a reason right now to not be content? Really? Okay. Are any of you willing to talk about it? If you're not, that's fine. I get it. It's personal. Okay. Okay. Fire away.
I have a pain in my shoulder.
Okay. So that makes you uncontent. It's because you wish it wasn't there. Okay. So that's a perfect opportunity. All right. And so you can ask yourself, well, how can I work through that? And I don't have any techniques for that, but I'll tell you what I do. I remember when I have an ache or a pain, I remember the time that I couldn't walk for 6 months. And sometimes when I get an ache or a pain, I think, well, at least I can walk across, the grocery store. Or if I'm sick or I'm unwell and something's not going right, I remember other people who aren't going to be very well in a few days. And so in a way, I kind of talk through that in my mind. And I think to myself, if other individuals who are suffering, if they could be content right now with what I have, wouldn't they choose that? Right? And so that's like a mental game that I play personally. Another thing when it comes to maybe pains in the body is the practice of, as I mentioned, looking at it non-judgmentally, just looking at it as a sensation, right? When I've had health issues and I couldn't get through them, nothing was correcting them. What would I do is I would just be with it and feel it purely without the label good or bad. And in a sense, it's like surrendering to it. And part of the yogic process is going beyond the choice. I like this, I don't like that. And this is what's beautiful about the whole thing when we get to some of the subtler parts of it is when you move into what's called so samadhi means oneness. It's the state we're aiming for in meditation. You think of it as wholeness and so on. Well, there is a state of samadhi which is related to ananda, which we translate as bliss. And when we think of bliss, what do we think of? Anyone? Joy. Okay, we think of pleasure, right? We think of, what's that? Blissed out. That's what we think of as bliss. But at this state for the yogi, it's just pure feeling, right? Because, I don't know anyone personally, but there are people in the world where they're masochists that love pain. Like you hurt them and it feels good to them. They exist, right? You can get up there and give them a little, twist and pinch them, right? And they'll just really do something for them. Or you smack them with a whip, they get off on it. Well, there are people that really, that is pain. If that happened to us, what would we do? Right? There are people, well, how would you feel if someone said, go sit in a tub of freezing water? How many would enjoy that experience? Well, I'm raising my hand because I do enjoy that experience. And how did I learn to enjoy that experience? I got in the freezing water and I relaxed and I let it wash over me. And I realized that that is just sensation. Now, in the beginning, oh my God, I didn't want to do that at all. Jasmine saw the first time I did it, I cried. I got out, I was still crying, right? And I learned that when I woke up in the morning, that if I just didn't think about it, and I just put on my little slippers and my swim trunks, and I just jumped in that tub, had to break the ice up first, and jumped in that tub and got in it, didn't even think about it, and I just relaxed. It became supremely joyful. So that is an example of how the things that we feel are dependent on how we judge them.